Hello, my name is Harper Tobin. I'm a policy attorney here at the National Center for Transgender Equality in Washington, D.C.
Harper, we have a situation. I'm from Las Vegas, Nevada. We have a situation that we're trying to rectify where we have a bar that has a mainly lesbian clientele, and we're having a situation where the transgender community basically can't go into either of the bathrooms, but the owner is trying to fix the situation, to come to some sort of compromise. What would you say that we can do in a situation like that?
Well, I know that sometimes people, non-trans people, have anxieties or misconceptions or fears about sharing the bathroom with transgender people. Most of the time, those fears and anxieties are basically a result of unfamiliarity and have little relationship to what sharing a bar or a community space with other transgender people is really going to be like. Lesbian bars and gay bars and community spaces of all kinds all over the country have sometimes had questions about bathroom access for transgender community members, but those questions have problems have generally turned out not to be problems. People have come to the conclusion that the right thing to do, and in many cases the legally required thing to do, is to provide people access to a restroom that matches their gender identity and expression without any sort of discriminatory, restrictive, or privacy invasive rules or inquiries about people's personal medical
Right, because
history
people have
and
had
things like that.
have instances of being in a stall and having a staffer look over the stall and say, "Hey, you don't belong in this stall." Now, the club owner in this particular case is being very cooperative, but she's in a bind in that Nevada doesn't really recognize. You can't just get your driver's license changed as easily as you can, say, in California.
Yeah.
What would you recommend to her, a woman who would like to do the right thing? But by law, the health code laws, they state a man in a man's bathroom, a woman in a woman's bathroom. What can she do, or what can you recommend the community do maybe about changing the law?
Well, my first question would be, does the health code specify that people of the opposite sex can't be in the bathroom, or does it, and that proprietors have to prevent that, or does it specify that they have to provide separate bathrooms for men and women?
Okay, that's a good question.
The latter case is typical. The former situation is pretty rare. There are very, very, very few places in which there's actually any kind of legal requirement that business proprietors get into the business of determining who is to be using what bathroom. What's more common, what's increasingly common around the country, is like here in D.C. and in Montgomery County, Maryland, where I live, and all through the state of California, is that that business proprietors are legally required to provide people access consistent with their gender identity. Now, I don't know if Las Vegas has a gender identity inclusive non-discrimination ordinance. Last I knew, it didn't. But the typical situation is that while there might be some anxiety that there is a legal requirement that prevents the business proprietor from treating people fairly, there almost invariably is not. What's on people's driver licenses certainly isn't, by itself, doesn't create any legal requirement of how business proprietors are required to treat people. As certainly a situation where somebody where an employee or a manager is looking into a stall is violative of precisely the sort of privacy concerns that are typically raised about having trans people around. I mean, the reality is, in almost any public bathroom, everybody's using private stalls that OSHA requires to have visual privacy and a locking door, and nobody can see you sitting on the toilet and so forth unless they're peeping in the doors, which would be inappropriate for anyone to do. And so this is why businesses and employers have found that people think this is going to be a big deal, but it's no big deal.
Well, what do you think the owner can do? Because one of the things that I'm getting from the whole situation is she's receiving complaints from her lesbian clientele.
Yeah.
Basically, like, there's a guy in the bathroom in drag. What can she do, maybe, or what can she in the transgender community do to maybe break down whatever that drama is?
Well, I think that the best thing that a business proprietor can do in that situation, because while businesses typically don't have any problem with trans people using the bathroom that's appropriate for their gender identity, like that in itself doesn't create problems. But as with any as with any kind of civil rights and access to public accommodation issues, there are there are situations where someone is not comfortable being around somebody else and complains to the management. And as with any other situation where somebody is not comfortable being around some other patron and complains to the management, the management obviously wants to listen to their clients, but doesn't have to basically accommodate the prejudices of any one of or group of their
It's funny you would say that, because as you were saying that, I was thinking, well, what if some white guys didn't want me in the bar because I'm black?
Sure, and I know that there are probably some gay bars in the country where some patrons would feel that way.
Right.
And I don't want to draw a direct one-to-one correlation
but
here
it's
with
the
that
same
kind of
sort of
discrimination.
no, but it is.
But it does sort of bring home the point that it's not the job of the bar owner to accommodate any complaint that a patron has about another patron. The question is the patron that's being complained about doing anything that's inappropriate? Are they doing anything that's illegal? Are they peeping on somebody? Are they harassing somebody? Are they groping somebody? Are they making inappropriate comments?
The kind of things that wouldn't be appropriate anyway.
The kind of things that wouldn't be appropriate for anyone in any part of a business. And if a patron's not behaving appropriately and they're not using fake ID, they're abiding by the law and the whatever the general rules of the establishment that apply to everybody, then the business owner should feel safe saying, look, I hear you, but this establishment is open to everyone, and if you're not comfortable with the other patrons here, you don't have to come into my business. And no business owner ever wants to lose a single customer if they can avoid it. But I think most people, and this includes most queer women who come to bars of any age these days, don't really care that much. And the fact that some patrons feel anxious about it, and I don't want to say that the patrons who feel anxious about it are bad people. Most of them, it's just a response to the unfamiliar. And, if they get the message, this is not a big deal, deal with it, people see pretty quickly that it's not really a problem. They get used to it. Whatever it is that they're thinking is going to happen that's going to make them uncomfortable doesn't happen, and people get used to peacefully coexisting.
Well, I wanted to say thank you so much for speaking to the ladies and gents out in Las Vegas. And how can people find out more about what you do? Is there a website or something like that?
Yes, NCTE's website is transequality.org, and you can find all sorts of information about our activities, about law and policy issues affecting trans people, and our efforts to pass an inclusive end to this year.
Thank you so much, Harper.